What if I told you that the most important financial document of the entire decade isn't actually a document at all?
Right. It's definitely not some massive 500-page bank report.
Exactly. It's not a sweeping macroeconomic analysis or, a glossy PDF. What if the definitive map of where the whole global economy is heading is just a single kind of cryptic string of text, just 64 characters long?
It sounds wild, but yeah, that is exactly what we are looking at today.
Yeah, so today we are undertaking a very different kind of deep dive. We don't have a huge mountain of research papers to sift through for you.
Nope, no giant stack of reading this time.
Right, our entire source material for this deep dive is just one isolated file path. It's a digital footprint, and it reads exactly like this. Sample 0009 notebook molfed 009 NVIDIA Agentic earnings source pack.txt.
Which, I mean, it serves as this microscopic cross-section of our current technological era.
Yeah.
We don't even have the underlying spreadsheets, the charts or the executive summaries that actually live inside that file, but just the metadata itself.
The wrapper, basically.
Yeah. All right, the wrapper. Just the way these specific words are arranged and packaged, it reveals the whole underlying architecture of how information and capital and computing power are all just colliding right now.
So if you've been watching your tech portfolio swing wildly lately, or if you're just trying to make sense of the sheer volume of money pouring into data centers, this single file path actually explains what Wall Street and Silicon Valley are betting on.
It really does.
Let's break down the container itself before we even touch the big buzzwords. So we have a file named source pack, and it ends in a .txt extension, right? And it's sitting inside a notebook in directory.
Yeah, and that structure alone, it signals this massive shift in who, or, well, I guess what, is actually consuming financial data today.
Okay, unpack that a bit, the .txt part.
Yeah, the transition to plain text is probably the most telling detail there. Because, I mean, for decades, the absolute pinnacle of financial information was the Bloomberg terminal, right?
Oh, yeah, the classic dual monitor setup with all the flashing numbers.
Exactly. Or, a beautifully formatted PDF with interactive dashboards, color-coded charts, really carefully designed typography, all of that.
Stuff made for human eyes.
Right. All that formatting is designed for the human visual cortex.
Right.
But the mere existence of a .txt source pack, that implies that human eyes are no longer the primary consumers of this high-stakes data.
Because every single byte of formatting, right, like every HTML tag or CSS styling rule, that's just a wasted token in an AI's context window.
Precisely. It is the exact opposite of how we used to build digital documents.
Right.
When you are feeding data into a large language model, you just want the highest possible signal-to-noise ratio. The machine, it doesn't care about bold fonts at all.
Doesn't care if the header is blue.
Exactly. It just cares about raw, unadulterated information density. So by stripping the most valuable financial data on the planet down to a simple .txt file, we are optimizing purely for machine ingestion. Yeah, it implies this workflow where a human analyst doesn't even sit down to read the quarterly report anymore. They just hand a raw source pack to an AI model and ask it to synthesize the alpha.
And let's take that a step further, because the architecture here, it implies an even deeper level of orchestration.
How so?
Well, alongside a source pack like this one, we often see companion metadata files. In fact, our supplementary notes for this dive reference another file in this exact same directory, which is EP009 customized promptin.txt.
Yes. The prompt file.
Right. So we aren't just feeding the machine raw text and crossing our fingers. We are building these highly systematized pipelines. One file holds the raw data, and then another file, this highly customized prompt file, dictates the exact analytical lens the AI should use to process it.
And that separation of data and instruction, that is exactly how you build a scalable cognitive factory.
A cognitive factory, I like that.
Yeah, because the customized prompt file acts as the AI's operating parameters. Basically tells the model, hey, don't just summarize this earnings report.
Go deeper.
Right. Evaluate the capital expenditure metrics against historical supply chain data, and then extract the forward guidance on server deployments.
Wow. And the fact that this is labeled EP009 and sample 009, that kind of reveals that this isn't just a one-off experiment, right?
Exactly. It's a continuous rhythmic ingestion pipeline. The system is just constantly pulling down customized prompts and source packs and analyzing the very companies that build the hardware the system runs on.
The machine is observing its own creators.
It really is.
Which I think naturally pulls us inward from the metadata wrapper to the real anchor of this entire string, the juxtaposition of NVIDIA and earnings.
Yeah, those two words,
Because we build these complex automated parsing pipelines for one main reason, right? Because the financial stakes attached to those two words currently dictate the movement of the broader economy.
They operate as the ultimate bellwether. I mean, when a traditional massive corporation reports earnings, it's a historical scorecard.
Like looking in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. It tells you, how many physical goods were moved in the last 90 days. But an NVIDIA earnings report, that functions completely differently.
Yeah, it's not just about what they sold.
Right. It is treated by global markets as forward guidance for human technological progress itself.
Because it reveals the actual velocity of the infrastructure build-out. Like, how fast are we actually laying the tracks?
Yes. It quantifies exactly how fast the hyperscalers, the largest cloud providers on Earth, are deploying capital. The ideas for the next generation of software, they're already mapped out in research labs.
The math is done.
The math is done. But bringing those theoretical models into reality, that requires just an unfathomable amount of compute power.
Yeah.
So the market isn't just watching a company sell silicon chips. It is watching the allocation of the world's absolute most critical bottleneck resource.
Okay, let me challenge that premise for a second, though.
Sure.
Because by treating hardware as this indefinite bottleneck, aren't we maybe ignoring the reality of software optimization?
What do you mean?
Well, we are seeing open source models shrink dramatically right now. Developers are using techniques like quantization and model pruning to run incredibly sophisticated AI on just standard commercial laptops.
That is true.
So if the software is getting exponentially more efficient, why does the market still believe this insatiable demand for massive centralized NVIDIA server farms will sustain itself? Doesn't the efficiency eventually, kill the monopoly?
It's a great question, but the counterweight to software efficiency is induced demand. It's basically the Jevons paradox applied to computation.
The Jevons paradox. Remind me how that works.
Yeah. So back in the 19th century, William Stanley Jevons observed that as steam engines became way more efficient at using coal consumption actually skyrocketed.
Wait, really? It went up?
Yeah, because the efficiency made steam power economically viable for entirely new industries that couldn't afford it before. And we are seeing the exact same phenomenon with compute right now.
Ah, I see. So as the models get cheaper to run, we don't run fewer of them. We just run a massively higher volume of them across way more complex domains.
Exactly. Think about the interstate highway system.
Okay.
If engineers optimize traffic flows and they make the cars more fuel efficient, it doesn't mean we just stop building roads.
Right, people just drive more.
Exactly. Logistics companies realize they can now profitably ship goods to entirely new regions, which induces more traffic, which requires wider highways.
So optimization at the software layer just unlocks entirely new tiers of use cases that were previously way too expensive to even attempt.
You nailed it. And the most resource-intensive use case of all happens to be the next word in our source string.
Agentic.
Yeah.
It's wedged directly between the hardware giant and its financial scorecard. I mean, this single variable really answers the exact pushback I just had about software efficiency.
It changes the whole equation.
Yeah, if we were just building faster chatbots, the hardware demand probably would plateau eventually. But the shift to agentic systems, that completely rewrites the math for compute consumption.
To really understand why the compute demand explodes, we have to look mechanically at what an autonomous agent actually does versus, a traditional large language model.
Break that down for us.
Sure. For the past few years, the public's understanding of AI has been heavily anchored to reactive retrieval.
Right. You type a prompt, you get an answer.
Exactly. You type a prompt, the model performs a single forward pass through its neural network, and it spits out a highly probable string of text. The interaction is brief, and the compute required is relatively contained.
It's a transaction. Like, you put a coin in the slot, you get a candy bar out, and then the machine just powers down and waits for the next user.
That's a perfect analogy. But agentic AI transforms that transaction into a continuous loop. Right. An agent doesn't just generate text and stop. It's given a high-level objective, and it utilizes chain-of-thought reasoning to navigate toward that goal over time.
Oh, wow.
It breaks the objective into subtasks, it triggers API calls, browses the web, writes its own code, tests that code, observes the result, realizes it made an error, rewrites the code, and tries again.
It just keeps going. It is the difference between cognition and action.
Yes.
Like if a standard AI is having a really smart encyclopedia on your desk, an agentic AI is handing that encyclopedia your credit card and asking it to go research, negotiate, and purchase a new vendor software system for your company while you sleep.
That is exactly it. And that looping mechanism, the constant self-prompting, the reflection, the interaction with external tools, all of that requires continuous inference compute.
Continuous inference, so not just training.
Right. During the early days of the AI boom, the massive capital expenditures we saw were all about training compute. Companies were buying tens of thousands of GPUs just to teach the models the baseline parameters of human language and logic.
And that was kind of the first wave of NVIDIA's explosive earnings, right?
Yeah, that was wave one.
But training a model is technically a finite process. I mean, once the model is trained, it's pretty much done.
But the transition to agentic AI shifts the financial center of gravity entirely from training to inference. Every single time an agent loops, every time it reflects on an error, it is running an inference process.
So it's constantly taxing the hardware.
If an enterprise deploys, say, 10,000 autonomous agents to handle their customer service, their supply chain logistics, and their data analysis, those agents are running 24/7. They don't sleep.
Wow.
The inference compute required to sustain an autonomous digital workforce like that, it completely dwarfs the compute required to train the model in the first place.
Which fundamentally changes the criteria we use to evaluate these earnings reports going forward.
It has to.
Right now, when you look at these massive tech companies buying up every chip they can find, Wall Street views it mostly as CapEx, right? Capital expenditure. They're laying down the railroad tracks, just hoping that a profitable train will eventually run on them.
Hoping being the key word.
Yeah. But if we really are entering the agentic era, Wall Street's patience for pure CapEx is going to expire.
The metric of success has to shift from infrastructure spending to real-world return on investment.
ROI.
Right. For the past 2 years, the main question driving global markets has just been, who has the most compute? But as agentic AI comes online, the question becomes, what economic value is that compute actually generating?
So these earnings reports will no longer be judged solely on top-line revenue, but on the actual efficiency gains those chips are creating in the real economy.
Exactly. Because if the agents can truly execute multi-step workflows without human intervention, the total addressable market for this technology is no longer just IT software budgets.
What is it?
The market they are disrupting is global payroll.
Man, the implications of that are staggering.
They really are.
Because if a corporation can buy continuous inference compute to run an agentic sales team, and that costs a fraction of a human team, and it operates globally across all time zones, then the ROI equation is suddenly solved.
Solved instantly. The massive investments in NVIDIA hardware are suddenly justified, not as some speculative infrastructure play, but as direct labor replacement and augmentation.
But I mean, the flip side of that is the massive risk of the hardware overhang.
Oh, absolutely.
If the agents fail to deliver, if they get stuck in infinite loops, or they hallucinate during critical business workflows, or they just simply prove too fragile to replace resilient human processes, then the whole justification for buying millions of $20,000 GPUs just collapses.
Completely collapses, which is exactly why this 64-character file path we're talking about is the Rosetta Stone for the current economy.
Right.
Agentic AI is the software promise that absolutely must materialize to justify the NVIDIA hardware reality. And earnings is the harsh, unforgiving financial light under which that precarious relationship is going to be continuously judged.
So the market is frantically parsing these source packs to detect even the slightest signal that the agentic transition is actually succeeding.
They are looking for any proof they can find.
It's just an incredible chain of causality. Think about it. We start with raw material, silicon, which is turned into processors. Those processors are networked into massive data centers. Those data centers train neural networks. And now those neural networks are evolving from passive chatbots into active autonomous agents. And those agents are ultimately being deployed to generate the very financial returns that will fund the next generation of silicon.
It is a wildly accelerating feedback loop, and every single step of that loop requires an evolution in how we process information.
which brings us full circle right back to the metadata we started with.
Exactly.
The fact that this critical evaluation of the economy is happening inside a stripped-down.txt file, guided by a companion customized prompt file, it proves that the scale of the data has just exceeded human processing capacity.
We simply can't read the financial tea leaves fast enough anymore.
We literally have to build machines to analyze the financial viability of the machines we are building.
And that source pack is the bridge. It is human-generated financial reality, modularized, stripped of its formatting, and served up on a silver platter for an algorithmic mind to digest.
Yeah.
It shows us that the architecture of knowledge storage has formally pivoted. We are no longer building libraries for ourselves. We are building databases for our successors.
That is a haunting way to put it, but it's true. Just think about the pure density of information hidden in plain sight here.
Oh, yeah.
Most people probably scroll past file paths 100 times a day without a second thought. But by treating this single string as a forensic artifact today, we've unpacked so much. The transition from visual dashboards to raw machine tokens.
The Jevons paradox of software efficiency driving hardware demand.
Right. The crucial mechanical difference between passive text generation and active agentic looping, and the whole macroeconomic shift from speculative capex to labor-disrupting ROI.
The entire trajectory of the 2020s is basically embedded in those few words. If you really want to know where the global economy is heading, you don't even need to read the news. You just need to look at what data structures the hyperscalers are standardizing right now.
Wow. Well, that leaves us with a final, highly provocative thought to consider before we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
So we just spent this time analyzing a file path that represents how an AI might ingest financial data about the agentic revolution, right? Right now, a human being or, a basic script is still compiling that source pack and writing that customized prompt file to evaluate the market. But if agentic AI successfully achieves the level of autonomy we just discussed, the timeline of human involvement is inherently limited.
Oh, absolutely. The closed loop eventually seals itself completely.
Right. So at what point does the agentic AI decide what data goes into its own source pack? At what point is the AI writing its own customized prompts to optimize its own analysis of the market?
That's the billion-dollar question.
And most importantly, when do these autonomous agents start executing multi-billion-dollar high-frequency trades based on their real-time parsing of this exact hardware infrastructure data?
It might be happening sooner than we think.
We are looking at a digital footprint today to understand our economy. But in the very near future, the agents running that economy might not even leave a footprint we can read.
It's a wild thought.
It really is. Stay curious, keep dissecting the world around you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.